Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a scenario that I think is going to trigger a little bit of PTSD for just about everyone listening.
Oh boy.
It's, let's say, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. You've had your coffee, you sit down to write an email.
Okay, I'm with you.
Maybe it's to your boss, maybe it's a client, maybe it's just a cover letter for a job application. It's supposed to be a simple update.
Should take 2 minutes max.
Exactly. So you type a sentence, you look at it, you hate it, you delete it,
Mm-hmm.
you type it again. You stare at the blinking cursor, and all of a sudden you realize you have been staring at this empty white box for 20 minutes, and you have absolutely no idea how to say, I attached the file, without sounding like a robot.
Or a psychopath, yeah.
Yeah.
The blinking cursor of doom. It is, I think, the modern human condition.
It's so visceral, isn't it? We all think we know how to write because, well, we know how to talk. We talk all day long. Today we are diving into a reality check, and honestly, it's a bit of a relief. Writing is unnatural.
It really is.
It is genuinely physically difficult. And most of us, even the smart ones, maybe especially the smart ones, are pretty terrible at it.
That is the harsh truth. And it's not just you. It's not a personal failing. If you look at the history of our species, writing is just a blip.
A brand new invention, relatively speaking.
Totally. As Charles Darwin pointed out, man has an instinctive tendency to speak. You put a baby in a room with people chatting, and unless there's a serious physiological issue, that baby will learn to talk.
They can't help it.
They can't help it. It's in the firmware. It's baked in.
Right. No one has to send their toddler to talking school or give them a manual on how to conjugate verbs orally. They just absorb it from the air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as Darwin also said, no child has an instinctive tendency to bake, brew, or write. Writing is an invention. It's a tool we built, like a steam engine or an iPhone.
And like any complex tool.
Like any complex tool, if you don't know how to operate the machinery, you're going to mangle the product. It's an act of engineering, not an act of instinct.
And we see the mangled product everywhere. I mean, you just have to think about the last time you tried to read a user manual for a dishwasher.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Or a terms of service agreement. Or, heaven forbid, an academic paper in a field you're just vaguely interested in.
It's sludge.
Yeah.
It's just opaque. It's what we call academies or legalese or corporates.
Yeah, a lot of that is.
It's thick, it's heavy, and it feels like it refuses to let you in.
It honestly feels like the person who wrote it hates you personally or is actively trying to hide something from you.
Or at the very least, they
Yeah.
they don't care about you
Yeah.
at all. And for a long, long time, the solution to this, the way we were taught to fix our writing in school, was to turn to the style manuals.
Classics.
The classics. Strunk and White's The Elements of Style.
Oh, the little gray book. I think I still have a copy on my shelf somewhere. Omit needless words. That was the big commandment.
That's the one. And look, there is a lot of nostalgia there. There's a certain charm to it. It's like your stern grandfather telling you to tuck in your shirt and stand up straight.
It feels proper.
It feels proper. It feels like manners. But we are taking a different approach today. We are pushing that grandfather's advice aside because, frankly, a lot of it is just wrong.
Wrong. Wait, are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say Strunk and White are wrong? That feels like blasphemy.
We are absolutely going to commit some blasphemy today.
Yep.
Factually, linguistically, many of those old rules are flat out wrong. They are based on folklore, or they try to force English to act like Latin, which it isn't.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Completely.
Yeah.
They rely on intuition. But intuition is useless if you don't already have a good ear for writing. So, for this deep dive, we are replacing dogma with science.
Okay, I'm very intrigued. So if we aren't using the little gray book, the grandfather's advice, what are we using?
We are diving deep into the sense of style, The Thinking Person's Guide to Writing in the 21st Century by Steven Pinker. Now, Pinker isn't just a writer. He's a cognitive scientist and a linguist.
And that is the key difference right there. He isn't interested in etiquette or, properness. He's interested in the machinery under the hood.
Precisely. He's
Yeah.
interested in the engineering. He wants to know, how does the human brain actually process a sentence? When you read, what is your brain doing with those squiggles on the page?
And why does some writing make your brain just light up with imagery and understanding, while other writing makes it crash like an overloaded browser with 50 tabs open?
That's the perfect analogy. It's about cognitive efficiency. So today, we're going to talk about something he calls the curse of knowledge, which is probably the single biggest reason smart people write bad emails.
I can't wait for that one.
We're also going to look at syntax, Not the boring diagramming sense of stuff you remember from school, but syntax as a way to literally manage the reader's memory.
Yeah.
And we're going to define what Pinker calls classic style.
Okay, so let's get into it. Pinker starts the book with a bit of a provocation. A quote from Oscar Wilde. He says, "Education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth knowing can be taught."
It's a very cynical take, isn't it?
Hmm.
Classic Wilde. But it hits on a fear that I think every writer has, somewhere deep down.
What's that?
The fear that writing is a gift. You know, you either have the muse or you don't. And if you don't, no amount of classes or workshops is going to help you.
You're just destined to write boring memos forever.
Exactly.
I feel that so deeply. I'll read someone like, I don't know, Joan Didion, or even just a really funny columnist, and I think, I could never, ever do that. My brain just doesn't work that way. It feels like actual magic.
It really does. But Pinker's whole argument is that you can learn it. It's not magic. It's just that you can't learn it from a rule book that just shouts, never use the passive voice at you.
So how do you learn it?
You have to learn it through what he calls reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Like taking apart a toaster to see how the coils work.
Precisely. To be a good writer, you first have to be a good reader. But not a passive reader, which is how most of us read.
What do you mean by passive?
Most of us read for content. We just want to know what happens next or what the information is. We're just downloading the data. Pinker says you have to switch gears. You have to stop when you see a sentence that just works, something that makes you cry or laugh or suddenly understand a really complex idea perfectly. And you have to ask yourself, how did they do that?
You have to look at the blueprints. You have to pop the hood.
Right. You have to spot it, savor it, and then analyze it. You treat the text like a specimen under a microscope. And Pinker provides some incredible examples right out of the gate to show us how this is done.
Let's get into one.
He pulls a passage from Richard Dawkins. Now, love him or hate him as a public figure, Dawkins is an absolute master of explaining science with clarity and power. Pinker uses an excerpt from Unweaving the Rainbow.
I have it right here. And I want to read it out loud because you really need to hear the rhythm of it. This isn't just information, it's a mood. This is Dawkins talking about death.
A light topic.
A very light topic. He writes, "We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Arabia."
Wow. Yeah. It's heavy. It just lands with a thud.
It's a punch in the gut, but in like a good way. So let's apply the reverse engineering. Let's pop the hood on that. Why does that work so well? Why isn't it just incredibly depressing?
Well, let's start with the very first sentence. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones.
It's a paradox. It completely messes with your expectations. Dying is usually the definition of running out of luck. It's the worst thing that can possibly happen to you.
Exactly. It hooks your curiosity instantly. Your brain detects a conflict. Death equals bad versus lucky equals good. It's a logical contradiction, and your mind wants to resolve that tension.
So you have to keep reading. You need to know how he's going to justify that statement.
You have to. But let's look deeper at the mechanics of it. The words he chose, we are going to die. They're all monosyllables, short, punchy. There's a meter to it, almost like poetry. Da-dum, 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 da-dum-dum.
It sounds inevitable, final. We're going to die. Bang. It's not human beings will eventually cease to exist.
Which would be so clinical and lifeless. He chooses the words with the most emotional weight, and then look at the second sentence. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born.
Ah, I see what he's doing.
Notice the parallelism there. Never going to die,
Yeah.
never going to be born.
It's a mirror image. It's perfectly balanced.
And that's a huge cognitive shortcut for the reader. The brain processes the structure of the first half, never going to die, and then it can just reuse that structural map, that template, for the second half, never going to be born.
So you don't have to parse the syntax twice.
Exactly. It frees up your mental energy to focus on the meaning, on the incredible idea he's presenting.
That's fascinating. So parallelism isn't just some fancy stylistic flourish. It's actually a way to be kind to the reader's brain. It's offering them a template so they can process the idea faster and more easily.
It reduces the cognitive load.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once he's set up this logical rhythmic structure, he hits you with the imagery.
This is the killer part.
You could have said, the probability of existing is statistically insignificant. That's the scientist's way to say it. That's the accurate way.
Or there are trillions upon trillions of potential genetic combinations that will never be realized.
So boring. So abstract. The brain just glosses over a word like trillions. We can't actually visualize a trillion of anything. But what does Dawkins say? He says they outnumber the sand grains of Arabia.
Sand grains of Arabia. It's so specific, so cinematic. Why Arabia? Why not just all the sand on all the beaches?
Sand on the beach is generic. It's a cliche. Our brains have heard it a million times. But Arabia conjures a very specific picture. You see the dunes stretching to the horizon. You feel the heat. You see the vastness. It adds a touch of the exotic and the sublime.
He's elevating a statistical argument into something grand and epic.
He's treating the reader to a view. He's not just giving us data. He's giving us a scene to look at.
He's showing, not just telling.
That's the secret sauce. Let's look at another example Pinker uses, because I think this one is even harder to pull off. It's from Rebecca Neuberger Goldstein. She's a philosopher, and incidentally Pinker's wife, so he admits he might be a little biased, but the writing absolutely holds up.
And this is the passage about personal identity, the hard problem of consciousness. Usually when I try to read philosophy about consciousness, my eyes glaze over within like 3 sentences. It's usually just a word salad of ontology and phenomenology and qualia.
Right. It's usually abstract nonsense designed to sound smart. But listen to how she starts. She doesn't start with, the ontological status of the self is a complex and multifaceted problem. She starts with a photograph.
Let me read it. She writes, I stare at the picture of a small child at a summer's picnic, clutching her big sister's hand. She has a precarious hold on a big slice of watermelon that she appears to be struggling to have intersect with the small O of her mouth.
That line.
That line always gets me. Intersects with the small O of her mouth. It's such a weird, almost geometric way to describe a kid eating.
It is weird, and that's exactly the point. If she had written she was struggling to eat a slice of watermelon, your brain would have just skipped right over it.
Right, I've seen that movie before.
You have a script in your head for eating. You don't actually see anything. You just acknowledge the concept and move on.
It's like a placeholder image in a video game. Eating animation goes here. You don't actually render it.
Exactly. But intersect with the small O of her mouth. That breaks the script. It shatters the cliche. Your brain has to stop and actually construct the visual. You see the clumsiness of the toddler. You see the geometry of the giant slice and the tiny mouth. It forces you to pay attention.
It makes the image so incredibly vivid. So good writing disrupts our mental autopilot.
It wakes up the visual cortex. It makes you see. And then, when she has you hooked with that very specific concrete image, she drops the philosophical bomb. She says, that child is me. But why is she me?
Wow.
She anchors this incredibly high-level, abstract, philosophical question in the specific emotional reality of looking at an old picture of yourself.
It makes the abstract concrete, and that seems to be the lesson here from both of these examples. Whether it's the sand grains or the watermelon slice, good writers ground their big ideas in the physical world.
That is the big takeaway from analyzing these masters.
Yeah.
They don't rely on cliches. They don't rely on what Pinker calls zombie nouns, those abstract, lumpy words like realization or implementation or utilization.
We'll get to those later, I'm
All
sure.
right, we will. But the masters, they insist on fresh wording and concrete imagery. They write as if they have something to show you, not just something to tell you.
Which brings us to the central philosophy of the book, the big idea. Pinker calls it classic style. Now, when I hear classic style, I think of, Roman togas or maybe a really nice blazer. But he means something very specific by it, doesn't he?
He does. And this is the part of the book that really changed how I view my own work, my own emails and reports. Classic style isn't a fashion choice. It's a pretense. It's a role-playing game that the writer and the reader tacitly agreed to play.
Okay, a role-playing game. What's the game? What are the rules?
The game is this. The writer has seen something in the world, a truth. And the writer's job is simply to position the reader so that they can see it too. The core metaphor is a window onto the world.
A window. So the writing itself should be like glass.
Perfectly clear glass. The writer is essentially saying, come over here, stand next to me, look through this window. Do you see that thing over there, the thing I see? The writer isn't arguing. They aren't trying to impress you with their vocabulary. They aren't shouting at you.
They're just directing your gaze.
They're simply directing your gaze.
Yeah.
The focus is on the thing being seen, not on the writer or the reader.
That implies a relationship of equals, doesn't it? It feels very collaborative, very respectful.
It is. The writer and reader are equals, and their motive is just disinterested truth. And that's so rare. Think about how most business or academic writing feels. Pinker calls the alternative practical style.
What's that?
That's the supervisor speaking to the employee. The goal isn't beauty or truth. The goal is, I need you to do X by Friday.
Per our last discussion, please find the attached deliverable for your review. It's purely transactional.
Soul-crushing.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
effective for its specific, limited purpose. The real villain, though, the style that we really need to fight, is what Pinker calls self-conscious or postmodern style.
Oh, I know this one. I think I've written in this style. This is the writer who is more interested in looking smart than in being clear.
It's the narcissist style. In classic style, the focus is on the thing being discussed, the truth out there in the world. In self-conscious style, the focus is on the writer.
They're constantly getting in the way of the view.
Constantly. They're obsessed with the writing itself, with their own profession, and with covering their tracks so no one can ever say they were wrong.
Okay, so how do we spot a self-conscious writer in the wild? What are the red flags?
The first, and maybe the biggest one, is meta-discourse.
Meta-discourse. That's, talk about talk.
Exactly. It's writing about the writing. You see phrases like, the preceding chapter was intended to demonstrate, or, in the following section, I will attempt to explicate. Or, my personal favorite, it is important to note that.
Ugh. I hate, it is important to note. If it's important, just note it. Just say the thing.
Right. Get out of the way. It's like a
Yeah.
tour guide who stands directly in front of the Grand Canyon and spends 10 minutes talking about the bus schedule instead of just letting you look at the canyon.
You want to shout, move! I want to see the view.
Classic style simulates conversation. If we were at a bar, you wouldn't say, I am now going to recount a humorous anecdote involving my cat. You just tell the story about the cat.
So why do we do it? Why do we fill our reports with, the purpose of this document is to outline? It feels so necessary sometimes.
I think it's insecurity. We're afraid that if we just say, the revenue dropped, it sounds too simple. It sounds unprofessional, almost childish.
So we feel the need to dress it up to sound serious.
We do. So we say, it is important to note that a downward trend in revenue realization has been observed in the last fiscal quarter.
And suddenly nobody knows what actually happened, but it sounds very formal and expensive.
And you've just smeared a thick layer of Vaseline all over that beautiful, clear window. Another hallmark of this insecurity is scare quotes.
Scare quotes. Okay, this is when people use a common phrase but put it in quotation
Yeah.
marks, right?
Exactly. Say you want to write that your company needs to bite the bullet. A classic writer just writes, we need to bite the bullet.
Simple. Direct.
A self-conscious writer writes, we need to bite the bullet.
Like they're holding the phrase with tweezers. Ew, look at this cliche I found. It's not mine, I swear. I'm better than this.
It's so defensive. It says, I know this is a cliche, and I want you to know that I know it's a cliche, so please don't judge my intelligence.
It's a complete lack of confidence.
It is. Pinker's advice is, own it. If the idiom fits, just use it. If it's too cheesy or worn out, then pick a different word. But don't use it and apologize for it at the same time.
It's like mumbling. You're hedging your bets.
It's exactly like mumbling.
Hmm.
And that leads to the next sin, which is just straight up hedging. Words like seemingly, apparently, to a certain extent, arguably.
It would appear that the subject might, for the most part, largely be considered.
Stop. You're hurting me. My soul is leaving my body.
It's the sound of someone who is terrified of being sued or criticized.
It's CYA, writing, cover your anatomy. Classic style takes a risk. It's confident. It says X is Y. It trusts the reader's common sense to know that there might be exceptions or nuances.
You don't need to list every legal disclaimer in a simple sentence about the weather.
No. And finally, we have the true monsters of the style world, the zombie nouns.
The zombie nouns. I've been waiting for this.
Linguists have a more formal term for this, nominalization. It's when you take a perfectly good verb, an action word, something with life, and you kill it, turning it into a lumpy, lifeless noun.
So instead of saying we decided, you say a decision was made.
Or even worse, the implementation of a decision-making process was undertaken. You take a clear verb like confuse and turn it into the zombie noun confusion. You take prevent and turn it into prevention.
The prevention of waste is our primary goal versus we want to prevent waste.
The first one has no people in it. It has no action. It's just these abstract lumps bumping into each other in the dark. Prevention is a thing. Goal is a thing. But who is preventing? Who has the goal?
Classic style loves verbs.
It loves actors. It loves people doing things. John threw the ball. Keep it active. Keep the blood pumping. Zombie nouns suck all the life out of your prose.
Okay, so we have our villain, the self-conscious, hedging, mumbling writer who's obsessed with zombie nouns, and we have our hero, the classic writer, wiping the glass clean. But this brings up a huge question. If classic style is so much better, why is it so hard? Why do smart people, especially smart people, naturally drift toward the sludge?
That is the million-dollar question. And Pinker says the answer lies in a specific fundamental glitch in the human brain. He calls it the curse of knowledge.
The curse of knowledge. That sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does, but it's a deeply researched psychological concept. And it's very simple to state, but very hard to overcome. Simply put, it is incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible, to imagine what it's like for someone else not to know something that you know.
Once you know it, you can't unknow it, and your brain is changed.
And you can't accurately simulate the state of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try something with you. We're going to do a live experiment here.
Mm-hmm.
This is based on a classic psychology study.
Oh, boy. Okay. I'm ready. Put me to the test.
Okay. I'm going to tap out the rhythm of a very famous song on this table. I just want you to listen and guess what it is. Ready?
Ready?
Rhythmic tapping sound. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap, tap.
Okay. Is it Ginger Dells?
No, not even close. Listen again. Taps again. Tap, 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 tap.
I have absolutely no idea. Is it
No.
Happy Birthday?
No. It was the Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, could you hear it now?
I did not get that at all. Not even a little bit. It just sounded like weird Morse code to me.
Exactly. But here's the crazy part. While I was tapping, I could hear the melody perfectly in my head. I could hear the orchestra. I could hear the rocket's red glare. It was loud and clear to me. So when you couldn't guess it, I was genuinely surprised. I thought, how can he not hear that? It's so obvious.
That is the curse.
That is the curse of knowledge. The writer has the full symphony playing in their head. They know the background, the context, the jargon, the history of the idea. They tap out the words on the page. But the reader just gets the taps. The reader doesn't have the melody.
And the writer's sitting there thinking, why are you so stupid? It's completely obvious.
Right. And it explains so much bad writing. The writer isn't trying to be confusing. They're not malicious. They are just assuming you share their background knowledge. They use terms like monetary policy or epistemological framework because those are chunks in their brain.
Chunks. Explain what you mean by that.
Chunking is a basic cognitive mechanism. It's how our brains handle complexity. We group small bits of related information into a single chunk to save memory space. For example, if you are an economist, monetary policy is a single solid chunk.
You don't think about all the little pieces that make it up.
Not anymore. You don't think about interest rates, central banks, quantitative easing, inflation targets. It's all bundled together into one unit. Monetary policy.
Right. It's like a zip file on your computer. You just see the one file icon.
That is a perfect analogy. But the reader, who isn't an economist, doesn't have the zip software. They don't have that chunk unpacked. So when the expert writer throws around monetary policy or semiconductor lithography, they're throwing zipped files at the reader.
And to the writer, it feels incredibly efficient. I just said it in 2 words.
Right. Why are you making this so difficult?
Yeah.
But to the reader, it feels impenetrable. It's just jargon.
So we are all cursed. We chunk information, and we all assume that everyone else hears the song in our head. How do we break the curse? Can we just try harder to think about the reader's perspective?
Pinker says no. That's the really sobering part. Trying harder doesn't work because your imagination is fundamentally tainted by your own knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just imagine you don't know the answer to a riddle you already know.
So we're doomed. We're stuck in our own heads forever.
No. But the solution is humbling. And it's not something you can do alone in a room. You have to close the loop. You need to show your work to an actual human being.
A beta reader.
A beta reader, a test subject, someone who is not an expert in your specific field, and have them read your draft. And you can't just ask, does this make sense? Because they'll probably lie to be polite.
Right. They'll just nod and say, yeah, it's great.
You need to watch where they get stuck. You need to see where their face scrunches up in confusion. You need them to tell you, I have no idea what you meant in this paragraph.
You can't guess your way out of the curse of knowledge. You have to test your way out with real people.
Exactly. Feedback from outside your bubble is the only known cure.
That is so practical, even if it is a bit painful for the ego. Okay, so moving on. We've talked about the philosophy of writing the window and the psychology of the curse. Now we need to get into the nuts and bolts. The grammar.
The dreaded G word.
I know. Most people hear syntax and they want to run for the hills. It brings back these terrible memories of chalkboards and diagramming sentences that seemed pointless.
It felt like punishment.
It did. But Pinker reframes it in a way that I actually find beautiful. He calls grammar the original sharing app.
It's a great reframe. Syntax isn't a set of arbitrary rules. It's the code.
Hmm.
It's the protocol we use to transmit a complex thought from one brain to another. And to understand how it works, Pinker uses a metaphor of three parts: the web, the string, and the tree.
Okay, let's visualize this. Walk us through that model.
First, you have the web. This is the thought as it exists in your brain. And thoughts aren't linear. They're not sentences. They are a chaotic mess of connections, associations, images, feelings. It's a web.
Like a mind map on caffeine.
That's a great way to put it. If I say the word dog, you don't just think D-O-G. You think of your childhood dog, a bone, a park, the feeling of fur, the sound of barking all at once.
It all lights up simultaneously.
Right. But you can't speak a web. You can't say all those words at the same time. You have to linearize it. You have to output them in a straight line. That's the string.
The linear sequence of words that comes out of your mouth one after another after another.
And so the fundamental challenge of language is translating the multidimensional web into the one-dimensional string.
Mhm.
And that is where the tree comes in.
The tree is the syntax.
The tree is syntax. It's the hierarchical structure, nouns, verbs, phrases nested inside other phrases, that organizes the web so it can be strung out linearly without losing all its complex relationships.
This is why we have rules about word order. Dog bites man is very different from man bites dog.
Exactly. The tree structure tells us who did what to whom. Now, here is where it gets really interesting for the writer. Your job as a writer is to manage the reader's cognitive load while they are trying to reconstruct that tree in their own head.
So the reader takes my string of words and has to grow the tree back in their head to get to the web of my meaning.
And their working memory is incredibly limited. If you force the reader to keep too many branches of the tree open in their mind at once, waiting for them to connect, their mental parser crashes.
And this is where we get garden path sentences.
I love these examples because they make your brain hurt in a very funny and instructive way.
A garden path sentence is one that leads you down a path that seems right, it seems grammatically correct, until suddenly it isn't, and you hit a wall and have to stop and go back.
Give us the classic example, the one that always breaks my brain.
Okay. The cotton clothing is made of grows in Mississippi. Wait, okay. The cotton clothing is made of. At that point, I'm expecting a material. Like, the cotton clothing is made of wool, which doesn't make sense, but grammatically.
Right, you're waiting for the object of the preposition of, but then you get the verb grows.
Yeah.
And your brain just crashes. Error 404.
And you have to back up. You have to reread it and realize cotton wasn't an adjective modifying clothing. Cotton was the noun. The cotton that clothing is made of grows in Mississippi.
It's a mental stumble. It feels like missing a step on the stairs. It's unpleasant.
And it happens because of probability, right? Our brain is always predicting the next word.
Always. We expect certain words to follow others. A good writer anticipates these stumbles and prevents them. In that case, you just add the word that. The cotton that clothing is made of. Problem solved. The reader never stumbles.
So syntax isn't about following rules for the sake of rules. It's about building a safe, well-lit path for the reader so they don't trip and fall.
Exactly. It's about safety and courtesy. Pinker gives us two key principles for keeping the tree manageable for the reader. The first is given before new.
Start with what they already know.
Yes. Start your sentence with the topic, the thing we are already talking about, the given information. Then, at the end of the sentence, introduce the comment, the new information you want to add.
So you're anchoring the new info to something familiar.
Precisely. Pinker uses the Beatles as an example. Remember the intro to St. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?
Of course. So, may I introduce to you the act you've known for all these years, St. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Perfect. Now imagine if Paul McCartney had sung, St. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the act you've known for all these years that I'd like to introduce to you.
That just lands with a thud. It's clunky and awful.
It's awful because it's new before given. It forces the listener to hold this confusing new name, St. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, in their short-term memory before they know what it is or why they should care about it.
By starting with, may I introduce to you, he's setting the context.
He's setting the stage. The given context is an introduction is happening. The brain is prepped. Then the new info lands at the end where it has the most impact.
That explains why so many jokes work that way too. The punchline, the new information, is always at the very end.
Precisely. The second principle is called heavy NP shift. That's a bit of technical jargon.
NP is noun phrase.
Noun phrase, yes. But it basically means put long, complex phrases at the end of the sentence. Don't jam them into the middle.
Don't put a giant list or description in the middle of your main clause.
Right. Don't say, I gave the book that I bought yesterday at the big bookstore downtown, which was having a massive sale on all nonfiction to my friend John.
I total lost track of what happened there. My brain stalled.
Because that giant heavy clause in the middle separates the verb gave from the recipient John. The reader has to hold gave in suspension for like 10 seconds while they process your entire shopping trip.
So how do you fix it?
You shift the heavy part to the end. I gave the book to my friend John, the one that I bought yesterday at the bookstore that was having a sale.
Ah, much easier. It's like you're saving the reader's memory. You're being kind to their short-term RAM.
That's the perfect way to think about it. Good writing is good memory management.
So that's the sentence level. But of course, we don't just write sentences. We write paragraphs. We write whole documents. This brings us to arcs of coherence. How do we prevent the reader from getting lost in the tangle of cables between sentences?
You want to guide the reader smoothly from one thought to the next? Pinker uses this fantastic and kind of funny example from a local nature column called Ask the Bird Folks by a writer named Mike O'Connor. It's a story about herons freezing in the winter.
And it's a masterclass in flow.
It is. And the secret is something called topic strings. O'Connor keeps the heron as the subject, as the topic, of consecutive sentences. He writes something like, "The great blue heron is a patient hunter. The heron can stand motionless for hours. The heron waits for a fish to swim by."
He doesn't bounce around. He doesn't say, "The heron hunts." Observing the bird is an interesting activity. Fish are often eaten by it.
Correct. If you switch the subject from heron to observer to fish, the reader's mental camera has to keep panning around wildly. It's disorienting. By keeping the topic consistent, the reader doesn't have to constantly reset their mental stage.
The main character stays the main character.
This is where Pinker comes back to defend the passive voice.
The passive voice again, I thought that was the ultimate sin of writing. My high school English teacher circled it in red pen like it was a crime.
Your English teacher was probably wrong. Sometimes the passive voice is the only way to maintain a coherent topic string. If you were writing a paragraph about the heron and you want to mention that a birdwatcher saw it, think about your options.
Okay.
If you use the active voice, a birdwatcher saw the heron, you have just changed the subject of the sentence to birdwatcher. The spotlight moves off your main character.
But if you use the passive and say, "The heron was seen by a birdwatcher,"
The heron stays in the spotlight. It remains the subject. The passive voice is a crucial tool for directing the reader's attention. It allows you to keep the focus exactly where you want it.
that makes so much sense. It's not a grammar error. It's a tool. It's about cinematography, about where you're pointing the camera.
Exactly. The other great enemy of coherence is what he calls elegant variation.
This is monologophobia, the fear of using the same word twice.
This drives me absolutely crazy. You see it in bad sports journalism and food writing all the time. A writer mentions a banana. Then, in the next sentence, to avoid repeating the word banana, they call it the elongated yellow fruit.
Then in the next sentence, the potassium-rich snack.
And then the curvaceous tropical treat. For heaven's sake, just call it a banana.
Because every time you change the word, the reader has to do a little mental calculation.
A millisecond of processing. Wait, is an elongated yellow fruit a different thing from the banana he just mentioned? Oh no, okay, it's the same thing. It adds unnecessary friction. Repetition of key terms allows for clarity. It creates a lexical chain the reader can follow. Don't be afraid to repeat your key terms.
And lastly, connectives. Words like therefore, however, because.
Yes, readers are not mind readers. If two sentences are related by cause and effect, use the word because. If they're in contrast, use the word however. Don't make the reader guess the logical relationship between your ideas. When in doubt, connect.
Okay, we're coming into the final stretch now, section 6. Telling right from wrong. We have to talk about the rules, the grammar police, the people who write angry letters to the editor if you end a sentence with a preposition.
The gotcha gang. Pinker devotes a whole wonderful chapter to dismantling these people, or at least their arguments. He makes a key distinction between real rules, which are necessary for clarity, like subjects must agree with verbs, and folklore or zombie rules.
Zombie rules. I love that. So give me a zombie rule, one that just needs to die and be buried.
You can't split an infinitive. This is the classic, the Star Trek intro, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
The pedants, the stylistas, they say it should be to go boldly.
Right. And this rule is a ghost from the 18th century when people tried to make English grammar conform to Latin. In Latin, an infinitive is a single word, like ire. You literally can't split it. But English isn't Latin.
Not at all.
Our infinitives are two words, to and go. We split verbs all the time, and frankly, to boldly go just sounds better. It's rhythmically superior. There is zero scientific or logical reason to forbid it.
How about the one about ending a sentence with a preposition? That Winston Churchill quote comes to mind.
That is the sort of nonsense of which I will not put.
He was mocking the rule.
He was. It's a silly superstition. Saying, the thing I'm afraid of is perfectly natural, clear English. Saying, the thing of which I am afraid sounds like a Victorian robot.
And then there's verbing, turning nouns into verbs. I'm going to contact him. I'm going to Google it. People get so worked up about this, they say it degrades the language.
They do, but they shouldn't. English has been doing this for centuries. Rain is a noun and a verb. Paint is a noun and a verb. Table can be a verb, as in to table a motion. New verbs like to Google or to contact fill a genuine gap in the language. If a new verb makes communication more efficient, Pinker says, welcome it. Language is a living thing, not a museum piece locked in a glass case.
But he does draw a line. He warns against malaprops, using words incorrectly.
Yes, this is where he does get a bit prescriptivist, and I think he's right too. Don't use fancy words if you don't know what they actually mean. It's a way of trying to sound smart that backfires spectacularly.
Like the word fulsome. I see this in corporate press releases all the time. We offer our fulsome apologies for the inconvenience.
People think fulsome means full or abundant, so they think fulsome praise is a good thing. It actually means insincere or excessive to the point of being nauseating. So if you thank your host for their fulsome food, you were effectively saying their food made you sick.
Wow. Okay, good to know. What about bemused?
It does not mean amused. It looks like it should, but it means confused or bewildered. If you're bemused by a movie, you aren't chuckling. You're scratching your head trying to figure out what just happened.
So the lesson is, be creative with syntax, be flexible with zombie rules, but for the love of God, check your definitions in a dictionary.
Precision matters. Dogma does not.
We have covered so much ground today. This has been amazing. From the philosophy of the window onto the world, to the psychology of the curse of knowledge, the nuts and bolts mechanics of the tree of syntax, and finally killing off some of those zombie rules.
It's a whole journey, really. From the philosophy of truth all the way down to the mechanics of the neuron processing a sentence.
So let's bring it all home. What does this all mean for us? For the listener who has to write that email we talked about at the very beginning of the show, the one who's still blinking at the cursor.
It means that good writing is, at its heart, an act of empathy. That's the core message of the whole book. It's not about following a checklist to avoid getting a red X from your teacher. It's not about showing off how smart you are with big words.
It's not about you at all.
It's not about you. It's about lifting yourself out of your own head, your own parochial mindset, as he calls it, and realizing that the person on the other end doesn't know what you know. They don't have the melody in their head.
It's an act of generosity.
It is a profound one. You are doing the hard cognitive work of clearing the window so that they can see the view. You are untangling the web so they can climb the tree without stumbling. You are respecting their time and their brain power.
I love that framing. If writing is a window onto the world, our job is just to keep the glass as clean as possible.
Exactly. And I'll leave you and our listeners with this one provocation to think about. If you look at your own writing, your last email, your latest report, that draft sitting on your desktop, what kind of view are you giving your reader? Is it a clear pane of glass? Or is it covered in the mud of your own ego, your own jargon, and your own fear of being clear and simple?
That is something to chew on. Go out there, spot some classic style in the wild, and maybe, just maybe, delete a zombie noun today. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.